Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, December 11th, 2020. It's been a very 2020 week. I'm here with Ian Bliss. He's the CEO of Northern Shield Resources, NRN on the venture, and NSHRF OTC, company that, obviously my subscribers know I've followed for a long time. I'm friends with Ian and Christine Viancourt, and I'm a fan of their willingness to go and look for new things in new areas, which few juniors actually are willing to do, though they all sort of pay lip service to the idea. One of those areas is the Shot Rock property in Nova Scotia. Shot Rock is a low sulfidation epithermal project. It was discovered by a local prospector who did a deal with Northern Shield. They were basically literally starting from zero. The vendor, Patrick, had some anomalous rocks that he pulled out of a creek. Ian and Christine recognized those as having epithermal textures, and the rest is history, shall we say. Now, the last drill phase that you did, Ian, I think everybody was less than pleasantly surprised by the drill results because the core looked great. And I know it was a bit of a head scratcher. Can you kind of explain to us, where things ended up at the end of that program, and how that sort of drove you to say, okay, let's try CSAMT and see if we can make sense out of this, and explain what this CSAMT did, because it does look like it's a very significant change as of this release you put out yesterday.
Yes, absolutely, and thanks very much for the opportunity, Eric, to update our shareholders on this CSAMT survey. So if I really start here on line 400, you can see here's hole number 4 from the first phase, which came back with some very high grade, up to 22 gram per ton gold. This is its pierce point on this section. And then on surface too, we have some reasonably good grades, actually up to 1 or 2 grams, but more commonly in the sort of 100 ppb range. And so we always thought that as we drilled down, we were basically at the level of the boiling zone, and said we just had to slowly go down, would hit higher and higher grade. But then, of course, in the second phase of drilling, which is really better shown on the next slide on line 600 of the survey, you can see these pierce points here, A, B, and C. These were the very large veins that we hit in drill holes 11, 12, 15, and 16. And these are the ones that we had quite a lot of excitement about, because they looked quite good, but they came back with, much lower than expected gold values in sort of 50 to 100 ppb range. And so that was a little bit confusing, because we were actually drilling below hole number 4, and we were expecting those grades to increase, but they didn't. And that's what caused a lot of the sort of head scratching and confusion over the last few months. So we sort of deciphered what was going on. But essentially what we realize now is those veins that we hit in these holes, 11, 12, 15, and 16, they're actually totally unrelated to hole number 4 and what we see on surface. And what we really see is that we now know we have, based on the CSAMT survey, a silica cap that's shown by these very cold colors, the whites and blues. These are very resistive rocks. And I say it's typically below that level of the silica cap that you expect to see your boiling zone and your higher grades. But the fact that we're seeing this gold on surface and fairly shallow in hole number 4 suggested that we were in that zone. But actually what is happening is that gold is escaping up. You can actually see there's a dike coming up through the silica cap here. Right. And that's creating a sort of a weakness in the silica cap, allowing the fluids from down in the boiling zone to very quickly rise through the silica cap into surface. So we're sort of getting a fake epithermal system near surface by these fluids quickly either being remobilized by these dikes or simply following them as a conduit to come near to surface. But in reality, that's not directly connected to the epithermal system. It's really these intersections we had in these holes from the second phase. There's my cursor there. And so now we know that this is actually the top of the true epithermal system, not what we hit on surface and in hole number 4. So, we can now start following that down. We believe we can see the boiling cap, below this very resistive layer, the silica cap. And so it's these structures that sort of cross-cut that zone that we're going to be targeting in the next phase of drilling. And this is really exactly what you want to see here. That you saw these cold colors, something very resistive, which is representative of silica and quartz veining. And this may be the clay alteration, which is less resistive, which you typically get on the flanks of these epithermal systems. So, you know, this CSAMT survey not only provided a lot of context as far as, you know, where these deep penetrating structures are, but we can now understand why we didn't hit those grades we're expecting in the second phase of drilling completed earlier this year.
Okay. And how much deeper do you think you need to go to get to the boiling zone now?
It's generally going to be about sort of around 200 meters deeper than,
Okay.
I mean, some of it may be a little bit shallower, but we're sort of looking between 100 and 250 meters deeper than what we hit these veins on in phase number 2. It may even continue, you know, deeper than that, but it's going to be on the level of 200 meters deeper than what we intersected hole 11, 12, 15, and 16. And again, it's encouraging because these veins are fairly big that we intersected, sort of only magnitude of 5 to 10 meters, these composite veins. And so if that's what we're seeing right at the top of the system, then again it suggests that there could be some very large veining down below, and that's certainly what some of these sections show. You can see if this dark blue, which is very resistive rocks, is part of the epithermal system, then you're looking at something of considerable size.
Yeah, because these are these are big. These are quite large veins, and you've got. Can you show us the plan map and kind of explain? Because there too, it kind of tied in, and it explained some data you already had, seemed to make more sense with this survey in hand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these the turquoise polygons are the sort of the surface manifestation of those very deep-seated structures. We're calling them here feeder 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And so, I mean, again, that shape is important. You know, when we started plotting these up and we started getting these sort of S-shaped, at first we're a little, again, confused. What's creating that? Is that logical? But then, of course, we had this big dilatant feature that we identified after the first phase of drilling, along with some compilation from surface data. And the orientation of these resistive structures matches that, you know, absolutely perfectly. And that's exactly what you want to see. In fact, you see what we call feeder 4 is really outside. It's south of this dilatant structure. It's number one, it's thinner. Secondly, it's running east-west. But as these systems get caught up in the center of this dilatant zone, they're rotated into the orientation of that dilatant zone. So they become a lot thicker because it's dilatant. Fluids can easily access that region. And then they get rotated from an east-west orientation into the S shape with a dominant orientation of essentially north-northeast, south-southwest. And again, you can see on here these little white dashed lines of those very large veins we intersected in the second phase of drilling. And if you join them up, they sort of parallel this main feeder system, along with a lot of the gold we hit in the drill holes, is paralleling those trends. So it's all beginning to come together now with this CSAMT survey.
And I mean, feeder 4 looks skinny, I guess, but skinnier, whatever that means in this context. But I know that's an area that you guys were interested in all along, and it's an area where you really don't have any outcrop to speak of, right?
No, there's no outcrop because it's sort of in the bottom of a valley down in here. But of course, it's this stream that first of all, in 2018 when we were taking stream sediment samples over the whole property. These were our 2 highest samples, running 1,000 ppb gold in these stream sediment samples. Patrick quickly followed up on those anomalies in the streams and started finding a whole bunch of pebbles and small boulders, represented by these red and pink squares. All these are gold anomalous, quartz vein pebbles. And eventually it led us up to the top of the hill on the highway zone where we started finding it in outcrop. But there was always a dilemma of, did these boulders really come from on top of the hill, because a slightly different signature to them. And of course, there's sort of a gap in here where you're not getting any material, gold bearing boulders from top of the hill into here. So it certainly looks like something's being picked up from a bedrock source here. And so, you plot the trend of this feeder zone. It's I say the stream is cutting it, right here. It looks like those boulders are being picked up from that CSAMT anomaly.
Okay, and that's road bed we can see there on the map.
To the south, up here's the Trans-Canada Highway. So again, you can see the proximity to easy access. Again, you got the middle zone over here, so the tail end of this dilating structure. Yes, this is the Trans-Canada Highway, which is actually being expanded right now from a 2-lane to a 4-lane highway. So, as I say, the CSAMT survey was very useful at, first of all, picking out these deep-seated resistive structures, which looks like the feeders to this epithermal system. It explains, why we weren't getting the gold grades in the second phase of drilling. And I say that's the trends here, again, provide a lot of confidence. It's not just one single resistivity high that we have. It's not a linear trend, which could represent several things. These shapes pretty well, to me, conclusively say we're dealing with silicified structures that have been caught up in this dilating feature.
Okay, and so what's the plan going forward? I mean, it looks like you've got, it looks like a pretty strong set of targets. I mean, this data seems to pull everything together, and it hangs. I mean, it explains why you didn't get higher grades last time, but it also gives you, I think you arguably have a better sense now where the boiling zone might be than you ever had before. I mean, before you were basically guessing based on on the fact that you had some graded surface. Just sort of looked at sort of worldwide systems, like, well, okay, it ought to be about this deep. But now you kind of have this geophysics that's a lot more definitive in terms of saying, yeah, this is where it should be. And you have that boiling zone also shows on the cross sections. You see this less resistive layer that's right below the silica cap. That you figure that's just a lot of clay alteration. That's where maybe it was the silica cap was kind of bounding it, and everything's just kind of circulated around a lot just below the level of the silica barrier.
Yeah, exactly. That silica cap would have, as I say, prevented a lot of fluids from continuing to migrate to surface. So again, there's going to be a lot of alteration along that sort of the base of that silica cap, that lithology contact. And so that seems to be clearly marking the horizon that we want to be targeting or hitting just below that. And you can actually see it. Over here to the left-hand side, you can see one actually coming near to surface. There's a very different geological unit in here. It's already fairly high resistivity, low resistivity rocks. And so this feature stands out. This is a feeder 4. It stands out very, very clearly because it's hosted in very contrasting rocks. Whereas here, we have resistive rocks and looking for resistive features until you get down through the boiling cap. But it very much explains, why we weren't hitting the grades that we're hitting in the second phase of drilling.
Okay, so where do you go from here?
So now we're just fine tuning, sort of going through all of the different targets and picking what we think will be the best ones and the best orientation to hit them at. So we're doing that, started that process today. Again, just also combining that with the data that we have from the drill holes. Looking at the geochemistry, the different alteration phases, but it's all supporting this interpretation. So we're just fine tuning exactly where we want to hit these various feeder zones. And from that, we're obviously identifying where we're going to put the drill collars, and then we'll do some, we have to apply for some drill permits on that. But we're just going to the final stage right now of pinpointing exactly where the drill holes are going to be spotted.
Okay. And this isn't an area where you generally had a lot of problem with drill permits in the past. It's just, you got to go through the bureaucracy and, blah, blah, go through all the steps, but it's not there's nothing concerning in the area that would make it difficult to permit any of this stuff. It's just,
no, we don't believe so. It's just a matter of going through the process. All the drilling in the past has been on private land. This phase, we may be expanding it a little bit. But it's just a permitting process, and obviously with number one with COVID, and then Christmas in the way it may take a little bit longer. But the idea is we'd ideally like to have some core to show virtually at PDAC this year, and so we'd like to start the drill program prior to that.
Okay, and you're funded for this program.
Yeah, we're funded for this program. Again, obviously, it's going to be because we're drilling deeper now. We may expand, the drill budget and the drill meterage may increase, but we got the money to fund this drill program.
Okay. You know, I think shot rock looks great. I mean, it was, you know, it's been a frustrating project, but this is what happens when you start literally from dot with a brand new model in a brand new area. It's pretty obvious from this CSAMT that the drilling so far hasn't killed it because you did in fact get you got the right kind of structures, the right kind of alteration. You got a little bit of gold, and you're clearly in an epithermal system. You just need to basically zero in on the sweet spot. I also wanted to just ask you and get an update about Root and Cellar in Newfoundland. And I know you're in assay lab hell like everybody else,
Yeah.
so you're waiting on God knows how many samples. But you have done a bunch of surface follow up to the soil geochemistry, and it sounds like that soil geochemistry, in fact, worked out really well, even better than you'd hoped in terms of being a targeting tool.
Yes, actually, the soil sample program worked extremely well. It continued to define one of the main target areas we call Conquest in the center of the property. That's where we had a high grade surface showing of up to 45 gram per ton gold. You see gold mineralization on surface over about a 700-meter strike length on that, as I say, anomalous to up to 45 gram per ton. And the soil sample program expanded that, the strike length and the width of that zone. And more importantly, it identified what we think is a new occurrence about a kilometer north of Conquest, where we had a very high soil sample up to 500 ppb gold. The prospector went back in there right away, and we've located a number of quartz-bearing quartz boulders with sulfides, very attractive looking. And those samples are in the lab right now. But as you said, there is quite a long turnaround time on assays these days. But based on the soil anomaly and the quartz veining, we think we're on to another occurrence there that may be related to Conquest. And if that's the case, then it's certainly a very large footprint. We're looking at something over a kilometer by a kilometer at that stage. So the soil sample really helped to define the mineralizing trends at Root and Cellar, and now we just look forward to the assays. But again, as soon as we get those assays in, we'll be planning the geophysics. We really want to wait to see if this new showing is legitimate, so we can expand the geophysical survey, and then get that completed in the early winter, so we can come back and do some drilling, ideally late winter, early spring at Root and Cellar.
In that area, I mean, you guys were in there earlier than most, and certainly the prospector's been there for a long time. But that sort of the peninsula, I think, to the northeast, that area is heated up quite a bit. I mean, you seem to have a lot of company all of a sudden. I don't know if you're looking at or think you're looking at the same sort of thing they're looking at. I don't know if you're working off the same models, but I assume it's the same or very similar rocks. And I don't think you guys get lumped in or even try to lump yourself in with the Newfoundland play, if you will. But the truth of the matter is you have a Newfoundland play project here that's a long trend from the stuff everybody's jumping up and down and getting excited about. And you've got the kind of grades already that guys are jumping up and down and getting excited about. You just don't seem to be added to that club for whatever reason.
No, I mean it's just a little bit off that trend where all the noise is right now, but we're quite happy with what we're seeing as an area that's vastly underexplored. It's a slightly different model than most of the other exploration going on in Newfoundland. There is some high and low sulfidization gold exploration further along the berm, both to the south of us and to the northeast. And those projects are moving along quite nicely. And it's generally the same model. We think the age of this one at Root and Cellar could be different, simply based on some of the rocks we're seeing there that we don't know exist in some of these other projects, and also what we're learning at Shot Rocks. There could be an age difference at Root and Cellar, but it is an epithermal model, like both to the south of us and to the northeast.
Right. And then you've got another project fairly close to Root and Cellar called Mirashina. I guess that one, again, same old story. You're just waiting for assays.
Yeah, we've been in there several times, both by boat and by helicopter. Most of the mineralization It's a very impressive Gossan on exposed on a 150-meter high sea cliff. So that means either accessing it by boat when the weather and the sea conditions are right, or by helicopter. So we've been in there 2 or 3 times, I say both by helicopter and by boat, and waiting for those assay results to come back. But and we're beginning to get our heads around, the geological model there, which I think is at the moment is leaning towards a high solidation system. So again, akin to what we're seeing in the Burden Peninsula.
Okay. Several people asked me to ask you about Idefix. I mean, it's a great project. It is where it is location-wise, and you guys have focused wisely, in my opinion, on things that are more accessible and easier to work on and with more season. But I mean, that is a project that attracted a lot of people, I know, to Northern Shield in the first place. Is there anything going on with that sort of set of projects, but that one in particular?
Yes, as I say, we have continued interest that's evaluating both those projects. I mean, I've been looking at that data too, just a little bit here and there, and it is a very attractive project, essentially drill ready. Spectacular grades of nickel, copper, PGEs in these sulfide globules, and with the price movement in nickel recently, there is interest in certainly an interest in Idefix in particular, because it's essentially near surface mineralization. So all I can say is yes, there is interest in Idefix from third parties, and I say it keeps on attracting my attention as well. But at the moment, we're focused on these fairly easily accessible gold projects at Shot Rock in particular, and Root and Cellar.
Okay, with the large amount of stuff that's in the lab right now for you, and I guess you're going to be permitting like momentarily, I guess, for Shot Rock. You might be doing a little bit more work ahead of permitting for Root and Cellar, but you're pretty much narrowing down the areas there where you want to drill. It sounds to me like after a bit of a pause, and again, you've got the same issue as everybody, assay labs. There should be sounds like a fair amount of news flow between now and like the end of January, it sounds.
Exactly. I say there's several hundred rock samples that come back from those 3 projects you just mentioned, Shot Rock, Root and Cellar, and Mirachine. And then as they will be pinpointing these drill holes in the coming days and outlining more specifically those drill targets, and then hopefully a startup date of drilling sometime in the new year, along with some geophysics at Root and Cellar. So you're right, there'll be a steady news flow. The good thing about that sort of delay in the assays is it gave us a lot of time to really focus on interpreting the CSAMT and combining it with the drill data that we have at Shot Rock from the first 2 phases of drilling. And that's I think that's paid dividends, and just keeping our head down and focusing on the science here. And we like what we see.
Yeah, because it sounds to me like it certainly doesn't sound like the CSAMT sort of reduce your target size. If anything, it increased it. And exactly, I get the sense you guys are probably you're more confident about your targeting now than you were before. I mean, before you had a model and you knew where you kind of thought the oil was, but it was really prospecting with a drill. But now it sounds like you feel like you're a lot more confident that you've really got a handle on the system now and where things are. I think Ian said
exactly. Everything seems to be hanging together. And we have variety of data sets supporting everything else. It's not just a CSAMT current target generation.
Yeah. So I think that's probably it for now. My screen is telling me my internet is unstable, but that might just be me. So I think this is a great development. I mean, I didn't really lose my confidence in Shot Rock anyway. None of us were pleased about the last set of drill results, but I've been confident for a long time you're onto something big here. We just don't know if it's something big with lots of high grade everywhere. But it looks to me like you've really upgraded the targets, and there's just a lot more confidence in the presentation and the system. It all seems to make sense now. Those things that didn't make sense before seem to make sense now. I just think this is probably a much better speculation now than it was a week ago. The market's reacted favorably to this news, but it's not, it's the kind of thing people really need to get their heads around. So I don't think we've seen all the market reaction yet. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, CMST is a relatively new concept. I mean, it's new to us. It's been around for a while, but it's not overly familiar to most shareholders. So it's a matter of time to sort of digest it. But we've received a lot of interest as it's putting out the news release yesterday on the results, both from the everyday shareholder and from those in the know on the technical matter.
Okay. I think that covers everything for today. Lots of news coming from Shot Rock, from Root and Cellar, from Mirachine. Should be plenty of news releases over the next 6 to 8 weeks. Permitting will be underway for the next drill phase. That drill phase is budgeted, and there's always a chance that Ian pulls a rabbit out of the hat with Edifix or something. I mean, somebody shows up with the right offer. So there's a lot going on here. I think people were pretty worried that we were going to have, a bad end of the year with, tax loss selling and stuff. But I think whatever there was, I think we're probably through that now. It looks like the next couple of months are going to be very interesting. I'm really looking forward to this Root and Cellar stuff. I mean, that sounds really interesting, and it's a nice near surface target. And these drill targets look great on Shot Rock. Thanks for updating us, Ian. I'll catch up with you again maybe once you get the samples back from Root and Cellar, and you can kind of connect the dots there too. And like, here's a new geochem, here's the samples, here's what we're going to do. I know you mentioned that CSAMT, because of the type of rocks there, it probably wouldn't work that well at Root and Cellar. So you probably do something different, maybe some surface geophysics to tie things in a bow there.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just waiting for those assay results. That will help determine what geophysics we're going to do. I mean, after seeing this CSAMT on Shot Rock, I'm pretty tempted. We can use there just based on the style of mineralization that we see so far. But I'm very much looking forward to updating you again when we get those results.
Okay. Thanks very much. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Northern Shield, NRN on the venture, and NSHRF OTC. Great discovery story. Great science being done here by a really good management group. Thanks again, Ian, and we'll see all of you soon.
Thanks, Eric.